Welcome back to CardioWise. Today we have Nicholas Fernbaugh on the podcast, speaking from a friend perspective on hearing the news of one of his best friends about to undergo heart surgery. So we are joined here with Nicholas Fernbaugh. Can you say hi, Nick?
Hello, hello.
So Nick and I have become best friends through our career at university. We are both graduating seniors,
We
and
are.
at the time of at this point last year, I found out I had a heart condition from birth that needed to be fixed via open heart surgery. And I wanted to incorporate Nick on this episode to discuss what it's like as a peer, as a friend, as a family member, on how outside spectators take that kind of news. So, Nick, what type of emotions were you feeling whenever you heard that one of your best friends was going to have heart surgery?
I'm trying to remember first when you threw the news at me. I want to say it was before we left. I thought it was. At least I thought it was like late March, early April. I thought when you first told me.
Yes, I believe so. I did the echocardiogram around then, around spring break, actually.
Yeah. You told me I think it was like either right before or right after Easter break. And I remember taking it really hard. I didn't want to show it at first because it was like really tough. Um, so I kind of didn't really show much. I was going to be supporting you through this whole thing because I know how scary this stuff can be. Um, so I was like not worried for the first bit until you kind of like said like, oh, I have to like go under and all this stuff. Like you have to get like full on heart surgery. Because I thought at the time I was like, oh, maybe it's just a little issues. The chest can get like some meds or something. And then you told me I had to get surgery. I think you told me that during the summer. And I'm not gonna lie, it really scared me at the time because I had friends for such a long time. So it's like I only knew you at that time for about like maybe I guess going on 2 years. And it never really set in like and you kept telling me like low risk, low risk. And I kept trying to think that, but just like in the back of my head, I just kept worried like, what if something goes wrong? And it it was really tough. I the first time I kind of heard the news during the summer, I never told you this. I called my mom right after you told the news, and I broke down for about like 5-ish minutes because it always scared me, even when you told me like nothing's gonna go wrong. Like you were so calm on this, and you were the one getting the procedure, and I was
I
sitting there
was
like,
so scarily calm about this.
yeah, and I was like freaking out because I never had anyone go through something like this. My sister had like this little thing called I think it was called like an ablation or something like that. She had like some small issues with her heart growing up, especially
Yeah, that
when it
sounds
was
right.
like because she did a lot of like tumbling and dance, so some of that stuff kind of got affected more so when she got older. But it was like a very like simple thing, and my parents kind of talked me through it, and I wasn't really around a lot because of high school, but this news kind of like really scared me because it was like, what if I come back and something happened and like he's not there for the whole first half of of our senior year, and I'm not gonna lie, it scared me, especially the day. Um, the biggest story of this was, yeah, I think it was like 2 or 3 days before you went. You, me, Jimmy, and his girlfriend Megan,
We
we
hosted Duke
we
Days.
hosted a Duke Day,
Yeah.
and I remember it was the best time. You and me just laughed hysterically through that entire show because it was cool setting up stuff for DSR. And as that happened, like as that day came to a close, I remember giving you a big hug, and I got in the car, and I really was fighting back tears leaving. because it's a scary feeling knowing you don't know what's going to happen to someone close when you're so far away. Like for people for reference, I am about like 5 hours ish about from where Harley is to where I'm at. I'm south of DC, and it's it's a tough feeling not being able to be there for your friend through that. So it was definitely challenging. But the minute I like called you after, like the day, or I forget, it was either like 2 or 3 days I called you after your procedure, because the first day you really loopy and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
I was very out of it. I was very
yeah,
drugged up. I felt wonderful though.
yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sure. I'm sure
yeah,
you must have felt great.
I had a big wound on my chest and I felt like Frankenstein, Frankenstein's monster. I won't lie. I woke up and
I'm.
I'm like, oh my God.
It
But
blew
yeah,
my mind when
I
you
was
showed me
drugged
what.
out.
Yeah. And so I called you 2 days, like 2 or 3 days later, and I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulder that day, just hearing that, because it was like, okay, he's doing good. It's just gonna be a matter of like just taking it slow, and I'll see him back in like October, late September, which I think was around. It might have been even earlier. You might have. I think you came back in like mid-September.
I was back.
Was
I
it?
think I took 2 weeks off and I was like, because the semester starts usually in August.
It was like middle
It's like
late
late
August.
August. So I came back like first week or two of September. So um
Mm.
just to take it easy because obviously I was cut open. I was trying to mend myself pretty good, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, those first 2 weeks were tough because um I guess another detail of people of the podcast, Harley, as we kind of talked about, we were promoting stuff for Duquesne because well, I guess you're still station manager of DSR. I am no longer, but at the time I just got or started my role as station manager of DSTV, and it was tough not having what felt like this is gonna sound cheesy. I'm sorry. The yin to my yang kind of around through the start of the year. It felt a little empty to start the year. I can't lie. It was tough.
For context, we should probably explain Duke Days. So Duke Days is
Yes.
it's a celebration of 2 or 3 days in the summer and in the fall semester, um, bringing together and accepted and admitted students, and it gives the student organizations a chance to promote themselves.
Yes.
So both Nick and I took over leadership positions in our student radio and student television clubs, and we are trying our hardest to get the word out and show that these clubs existed. I came back from Florida, from Disney, literally 2 days prior,
Yep.
before we did Duke Day. Then I worked the next day after Duke Day, and then I went into surgery. And
Yeah.
it didn't hit me until like I saw you, Jimmy, and Don, and like you guys like really like all cradled around me. And that's when it started like hitting me like, oh, this is a big deal, isn't it? So, and this is my first time hearing how Nick felt through all this. Like, both Nick and I, we keep a lot of things to ourselves, and Nick has
Yeah.
never told me this.
No. And I'm usually, for the most part, try to be pretty forthcoming with people about it. But I never wanted to say that stuff to you, because the last thing I wanted to do, because you and me operate similarly in the sense that we sometimes stress ourselves out about little things, and b
Oh, very much so.
we overthink a lot of crap. So the last thing I wanted to do was show that I was terrified about something, and it put that in your head when you're the one going to get the procedure. I never wanted to do that to you. And so I never spoke up about it. And it was one of the toughest things to have. It was honestly one of the toughest things I had to keep inside, because it it was tough. Like there were some days at work I like I'd sit on the phone. I'd sit on my phone and just look through things, and I think about like just being back at school and like seeing you again and just things being all right. And it it was tough. It's tough being far away from people. It's like, and like we said, especially when things go wrong and aren't you aren't able to be there for them. So that's kind of the context of where I kept a lot of that to myself. And like I said, it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do for myself. I never had, folks. The reason this means so much to me, like to speak on this, is that I haven't had somebody like this close to me this fast, because I'm the type of person where it's hard to let people into myself, like into my life, because of insecurities, because of lack of trusting. Sometimes I'm a little intimidating to come up to and talk to the first time. I've gotten that more than a few times. Sometimes I'm a little come off like a grizzly bear. Sometimes my face doesn't always show the best, even though I usually try to keep a smile on it. Um, but beating like I never gotten close with someone the way I got to with Harley as a friend. Like the relationship I had with like people from back home, that took like 3 4 years for me to get that, to get to where that was. The only one I was like that is my best friend Zach in Florida, who is I've been there for him for everything, including the loss of his dad. And for someone like Harley, for me to get like I felt close with him by like halfway through our first year hanging out, which I think the first time it really kind of hit was the I don't know if you'll put this in or not. It was the National Society of Leadership Student Success, that stupid term, the
Oh,
NSLSS or something
yes,
like
the
that.
NSLS, the
Yes, that National Society of Leadership and Success, I think is what
yeah.
it's called. And we had our like that award ceremony in the ballroom, and I was like, is there anybody here I can get by with? And like those talks were like the worst experience ever, until I
Oh,
saw like,
yes.
oh, I know you. You're in the TV station. All right, let's start
Yeah.
talking. And instantly, like from there, I was like, yeah, this is like a close friend of mine. And it helped. It brought, weirdly enough, you brought me out of my shell, like being at Duquesne, people like you and Michaela, because that's where it started. And so that's why this like news of like the heart surgery stuff hit me so hard, because nobody had ever gotten close to me like that fast in my life, like a best friend, the way you did, the way like people like you and Jimmy do. And that's why it hit me so hard. So, but it's obviously fun now to like kind of reminisce on it, because it's like it it's
It's
something
over
that
with
I
now.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you got through it. You showed off some great
Oh, I tease about it all the time.
you showed off your battle scar for
Yeah,
weeks, and
people
it
people
was
always want to see
amazing.
my scar, and I'm like, oh yeah, I fought a bear, man.
Yeah, you
Everybody thinks it's like, oh, what'd you do? I'm
fought
like,
it.
oh, heart surgery.
Got
Every
hit by
time I
a tank.
say,
Got hit by a tank head on.
every time I say, oh, I had heart surgery, like, oh my God, you okay? What was wrong? I'm like, I'm fine. You
Yeah.
know,
And like after the first time I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Cause I was like, I saw a scar, like the cut. I was like, holy, that
it
must have
was a
been one
big wound, yeah.
procedure. I
Yeah,
was like, that must have been one procedure. But everybody was like, what happened? But I got all that out beforehand because of the fact I knew it.
yeah.
But yeah.
Whenever I was about to undergo surgery, I didn't know what to think. I really didn't know. I'm just like, oh yeah, we're gonna fix this with heart surgery. I'm like, oh, okay. And I remember going home because like I went like 40 minutes just to meet with the cardiologist to talk about this. And I remember just going home, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have heart surgery. It'll be fine. Like heart surgery. It's gonna be fine. Like a big
Yeah.
I just brushed it off so fast. But then whenever it came closer and like everybody was like getting worried and I calmed down people, I posted on social media like it's gonna be okay. I have people who you can talk to. You can message while I'm in hospital recovery. And then whenever I got my phone back after a few days of recovering, I messaged people and just made sure everybody was okay. Let them know I was okay. Because I wasn't concerned about how I was. I was concerned about everybody else.
Which is this is the wildest bit through this entire thing. The first thing you did was check to see how all of us were feeling, which is just it's a very you thing to do.
Like my family was the only one who came and visited me. And
Mhm.
I think that was best because I was in like one of the worst like spots of my life at that point. I'm in a hospital. I'm hooked up to all these machines. What would you say to other people who are hearing news like this for the first time? How would you tell them it's going to be okay? How would you tell them to cope with it? How would you approach this?
I guess because I'm gonna try and think about it in the sense of like how I handled it because it was tough. I think the number one first thing is you can't let that fear and like constant anxiety, you can't let that show to the person who's going to go through something like that. You can't because they're the ones going through it. So you like in the case of like me, I wanted to try and be there and be that like your rock through that. Be like, you're gonna be good. I'm gonna be texting you out after. We gonna meet beforehand before the procedure. And you know, we're gonna hang out and stuff. You know, not even gonna think about that. And kind of, I guess the first thing I could say is running up. Like I would say up until like a week of procedure. If it's someone like say in the case of like family, say it's someone that you're always around, you have to take that thought and push it to the back of your mind. Like don't blatantly ignore that it's not there, but push it back in your mind because it's tough, but you want them to constantly feel like, you know, life is still going on as normal. It's not like it's not like in the case of like having life threatening diseases or you know something that genuinely does forever change the impact of someone's life. This is something where it's a big deal, but you're going to get through it and you're going to be at the end. Like you're going to make it through the other side and you know, you're going to be feeling even better than what you did beforehand. And so that's the way you kind of have to look at it. And then the other thing I could say, and like I said, I'm going to be this is more on the route of like a friend. Find ways to distract yourself from that kind of like from that like news like as soon as you have it like you like like get on calls and talk with each other about like catching up with things going on or you know jump on a video game watch a movie together like on Zoom or on Discord or something like that or Skype you know find ways to like spend time together without like putting that thought in your head 24/7 about it because the last thing people want going through that is pity.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Nick, for sharing your experience and your tips on how to cope with such news. I'm very humbled by the way that you've approached this and how you cope with this. It really melts my heart on how close you are with me and what it meant to you. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you.